Welcome to the Think Factory podcast. We got one question for you. What keeps you up at night?
Welcome to the Think Factory's Workplace Podcast, powered by OGC Solutions, the podcast where we explore the ever-evolving landscape of workplace dynamics. My name is Alka Bahal. I'm a partner with Outside General Counsel Solutions and the chair of our Corporate Immigration Services Group, and I am your host today. I am extremely pleased today to have with me Elene Costan, Chief Human Resources Officer at Berje. Welcome to the podcast, Elene. Thank you for joining me today.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm honored to be here.
Welcome. Can you start by telling us a little bit about yourself and your role in Berje?
Absolutely. So I have over 25 years experience as an HR generalist. I joined Berje in March of 2020, right? At the beginning of the pandemic.
Right in the start of it all.
That's right. Just jumped right in. And was promoted to senior vice president, and then my current role is chief human resource officer at Berje.
That's amazing. Very impressive. Now tell us a little bit about Berje. What do you do? Where are you?
So Berje is located, our headquarters is in Carteret, New Jersey. We are actually a global firm, and we are a flavor and fragrance manufacturer and distributor. So when you think of everything, you're walking down a grocery aisle, Berje probably has some part of that. You're just never going to see the name Berje.
Right.
When you're talking about scents, anything you're using scent, whether it be, a cream or a candle, Berje supplies the manufacturers, and even at times will create the fragrance for them.
Wow, that's impressive. So the primary source of your business is the raw materials, right, that go into
That's absolutely right.
these items?
That's essential oils. Yes, absolutely. Organic chemicals, all of it. Yes.
And so your footprint is worldwide, even though you're headquartered here in New Jersey. You must have farms in, 8,500 countries.
So we deal with farmers across globally. We have locations in Peru, Mexico, Bulgaria, Texas. So
Wow.
we do deal across the world. We have consultants as well as employees globally. And our vendors and at source, we deal directly with the farmers in, the countries around the world.
Wow. That's an amazing reach you have. And you are still a family-owned
We are a
business.
75-year-old family-owned third-generation company. A lot of the flavor and fragrance, we call them houses, they have been acquired by private equity, venture capital. They've been taken up by the larger players in the space. Berje is committed to remaining that family-owned, family culture dynamic, and growth will come from either mergers, acquisitions, or partnerships, and not just with other companies, but with those farmers and the at source, making sure that those relationships are very strong.
Very impressive, very unique, and something that really requires a very deliberate commitment. So that is very impressive. So let's talk about you a little bit before we kind of get more into Berje and your worldwide footprint. Tell me about your career path and how you ended up as Chief of Human Resources at this amazing company.
So I tease that I got into HR accidentally. I've done everything from data entry to customer care to shipping and receiving and office management. And that's actually how I got into HR. I was doing office management for a nice civil engineering firm, small. And the owner came in and handed me benefits and said, fix this. We're increasing benefits, by 20 to 40% annually. And I said to him, I have no idea what I'm doing here. And a great, mentor story that I'll never forget is he said, okay, stop, go finish your degree, because at the time I only had an associate's, and get that confidence, because you have more knowledge than most of my people here. You're willing to learn it and figure this out. And I did. I called brokers, I spoke to insurers, and had to really dig in and understand what I was looking at. Did go back to school. And actually, one of my professors was head of benefits for New York City Corrections, asked him for help, and really just found the niche place for me was a generalist, where I was able to dig in, figure out, impact change, and not just focus on one thing at a time. I would be bored. Part of what I love to do is dealing with people and helping grow people, and helping them understand where their role is and what their passion is. So for me, becoming Chief Human Resource Officer is really saying, okay, stop. You can still do the day to day, but now is your time to give that mentorship back, to make sure that people understand their career path and what opportunities are out there for them.
So you really launched your career in HR because someone saw something in you and believed in you and encouraged you and gave you that start that you needed to move on to this path. And I see that you bring that to your leadership every day. Would you say that that is essential part of your leadership style?
Absolutely. So don't be afraid to dig in and learn and realize, okay, maybe this isn't perfect for me. I was an office manager, right? You had to be detail oriented, and that was a little bit of a struggle. I had to really focus on that. As a generalist in HR, yes, I still have to be detail oriented and data driven, but I get to have a little bit more fun with that, right? I get to do different things. I could spend one full day doing data analytics, but the next day I get to explain it and work with employees and people. Now, yeah, the role is absolutely having people understand what their passion is and where they want to go. And what I love at Berje is that can be grown here, right? You're not limited to one career path here at Berje, and that is part of our value and culture, something that just aligns very well with who I am and the values that they have.
I think that's something that just makes you and Berje so special. It's, to have an employer who could really understand that you may want to shift gears and move into a different path is very rare. It doesn't usually happen. Like you're pigeonholed into one place and excel here or go. So that's great. How do you think? Sorry, go ahead.
Well, the world is changing, right? And that may have worked years ago, but I think people want more and they want to understand their value.
So true, so true. So how do you think leadership styles or your leadership style influences the workplace dynamics? And what would you recommend to leaders in improving their style or adapting their style in different teams or different situations?
So, I tease that you have to be authentic. And yes, you can adapt your tone and texture, but you shouldn't adapt who you are authentically. And, I always say people aren't going to necessarily like me. I'm not here to be liked. I work very hard to be respected. Many times I've been told, I don't agree with you. I understand why you're doing it because you've explained the why to me, and it doesn't mean I like it, but I understand it. And I push my team, and I will tell them all the time, I'm always going to push you. I'm always going to ask you to get yourself to that next level. However, on the one-to-one, you can come in. You can say, I'm having a bad day. This just, isn't my day. I'm struggling with this. And that's okay too. You really have to be authentic. If anybody says anything about me, they're going to say she's tough. But then they're also going to say she's fair. And I am tough. And I do expect a lot from my team and from everybody at Berje and everybody that I work with. But they also understand that I am very understanding of having that rough day, of having things in your personal life impact a day. What it can't impact is everything. So I think my leadership style is very much authentic in that I, expect things to get done. We're to work as a team. We're to, move that boat along. However, I'm also very empathetic in that everybody has something going on in their life, and sometimes that will impact your mindset.
Incredible. So you've listed authenticity, understanding. What other traits do you think are essential for effective leadership? Because when I look at you, I definitely see an effective leader. So teach me.
Thank you. Listening. You really have to listen. You can't just hear. You actually have to understand what the employee is saying, giving the opportunities, understanding that why they're going on the path they're going or what they're thinking they want to achieve. Everybody teases, yeah, compensation is great, but if you really think about an employee, they want to be valued. They want to be able to go home to whoever they love and say, this is why I worked extra hours, or this is why I put so much into this project. Look at the recognition that I've gotten, whether it be a thank you note from the executive team or an email, and sometimes that promotion that says, I worked really hard toward this. They recognized what I did. And that, I think, can be just as, if not more important than the compensation. When you're sharing, everybody has a life. When you're sharing that I had to take time away from people that I've loved, and maybe put a little extra into my job and to finish a project or work on something, and you're recognized for it, you can share that recognition with the people that really supported you, not at the workplace. It really makes a big difference for not only their own self-worth and feeling, but how they're viewed by their family.
Very nice, right? So you really do take a holistic approach. You see the whole person, not just an employee. I like that.
Absolutely. Nobody's just an employee.
Right.
I couldn't work at a place that just had a number, and I love the fact that I know, everybody, and they know they can come talk to me.
Very nice. Okay, so tell me, what do you think are the key trends right now shaping the modern workplace, and how should HR professionals be adjusting to these changes?
Well, I think I can repeat everybody when you say AI, right?
Mm-hmm.
And new technologies and the workforce as a whole, what people are looking for. And IT's, AI is not replacing my job. It's not going to replace people. It will assist us. And HR professionals absolutely need to be aware and put out the policies that say, don't use Chat GPT with our private information. Yes, if you want to write an email better, you can have it assist you, but be careful. As a employer and a leader, it is about understanding how these tools can help employees, as well as understanding that, the world has changed and people really, they want to do a good job, but they have priorities. Everybody's at a different time in their life. You can be 25 years old and be considered the sandwich generation because you're taking care of children as well as elderly parents, or you can be in your 50s and doing the same thing. And you have to really have the flexibility, right? HR, you have to follow policy, but you also have to have the flexibility and understanding that people are at different places in their life. And I think the trend for flexibility isn't so much about how many times you have to be in the office or this or that. It's understanding what works for the individual job, the department, and the company as a whole, and empowering that next level, the managers, the directors, in being able to run their teams effectively, both for the company and the employees. I think that is the trend that isn't changing and isn't, DEI, right? Everybody's, they're all getting rid of it. There's always going to be HR buzzwords, but I think these are the things that we should really be focusing on as we look at the 5, 10, 15-year path of companies and where we're going.
So you think this sort of new workplace dynamic of flexibility, it's permanent, right? This is a post-pandemic world. People learned how to be elsewhere than the office. And although we would like everybody to come back to the office and actually see each other in person once in a while, this is a part of the new workplace, right?
It is, and you have to understand which positions, right? So I don't think I agree that every so often it's amazing to have those team meetings, but if you're running a global workforce, how often is that able to really happen? Um, we're looking at Europe, and now there's visas that are going to be needed. So you really have to pivot and learn. I still agree that every so often you want to have that in-person meeting. It nothing will take the place of that. But it's going to happen less frequently. And there are positions that don't necessarily have to be in the office every day. Now, I work in manufacturing. There are certain positions that have to be here every day.
Right.
Finding flexibility with that was, okay, we'll stagger our start times because we have parents. We'll stagger our end times. We'll, start letting them leave early on Fridays. And it really was just thinking differently. And as HR continues, as we grow, as we did from personnel to HR to people operations, you really have to think of what tools you can use to really make the company profitable, as well as giving the employees the experience and the good growth opportunities.
I have to add one more thing to your list, Elene, of leadership traits that you exhibit, and that has to be creativity. I think that's one thing that really sets you apart. The whole idea of thinking about staggering the start schedules or, trying to find ways to accommodate these rather fixed positions to be more flexible for people. That's very creative. That's very impressive.
Thank you. I truly believe that Berje has allowed me to tap into what you call creative and I call care, right?
Yeah.
The employees, you really, as I spoke to a few minutes ago, it was thinking about the company, but also looking at that individual person and understanding that they're actually going to be more productive while they're here if you can do little things like that make their life outside of work easier.
Amazing. So, what are some of the unique aspects of your company culture that you're particularly proud of?
So, in addition to how we treat the employees, we have what we call our promise awards, and it's what we promise to each other. And there's wonderful things like passion and industry leadership, but one of those awards is integrity, and that just resonates with me because we look to our employees, right? It's yes, you want to be liked, you want to have good relationships, but we really value integrity in everything that the employees and we exhibit as a company. We believe that when you treat every person you deal with integrity, it just resonates and it really builds those relationships with employers, with vendors, with customers. And that really just made Berje really attractive to me, still does. I love that award that we actually put that as one of our awards.
Yes, that's very impressive. So, how do you measure employee satisfaction and engagement? How are you getting feedback from the employees so that all of these things are working?
So in addition to using third parties, right, like the best places to work, we actually have anonymous surveys that go out. The Promise Awards that I spoke about, they're actually not given out by executive leadership team, that you're nominated by your peers. So they're given to you from the employees if you win that award. And we have constant meetings. We make sure that we meet with the employees, whether it be me meeting with employees just as, a learner, a coach, not as HR. And we work across management and departments, really trying to help each other understand what is needed and what really is impacted. We use lots of tools. We love the third-party surveys. We love the comfortableness that the employees have with the anonymity, excuse me. But it also, I love when people come and say, I'd love to see this, or this is what we're talking about, and how can we come to this, or we want to do it. Sometimes it's just simple team building, right? One of the great things at Berje is my employees love to give back. They love to do for others. And my production team, which is 70 people strong, last year built Barbie dream houses to give away to children's charities. This year, they're building kitchens. And we do it in teams, and we make it a lot of fun, and we learn a lot about who leaders are. But at the end of the day, they are so proud of themselves, and they love the fact that we support them in giving back to the community.
I can see that. That's really impressive. That's amazing. So let's shift gears a little bit and let's talk about talent. What advantages do you see tapping into a global talent pool, and how does that benefit Berje? Now, you're already in existence around the world, so certainly you can hire in Peru for Peru, but what about moving people around the world? How do you find that, and is that advantageous?
Yeah, it's crucial to really immerse yourself and the company in understanding the different cultures, the different nuances, right? We love to tease, in August, if you're in the EU, we're not getting a hold of anybody, right? But that's not necessarily true for all other countries. And you have to understand, who you're dealing with, what the culture is, being respectful of that, and integrating it. So we have a gentleman here on an L1B visa, and it has been extremely successful in helping us understand, sustainability and ethics as considered in the EU, right? In the difference from the US. As we have just acquired a Peruvian company, yes, as HR, do I look into the rules and all of that, but bringing somebody from there to here helps us understand the work culture, the product, everything. So when you're that global company, it is so important that you really start to have some level of integration with those different cultures, and having people come here, right? And having others go to other locations, sometimes on a semi-permanent basis, is really crucial to your growth.
It's that exchange of ideas and thought processes more so. Even, obviously the information is going to get exchanged, but the viewpoint, the different sort of, the way of doing things, the nuances, that's hard to get when you're not in the same place at the same time.
That's right. And to listen, to read something is great, but to actually see it and to understand it from a different perspective, it becomes more real and something actionable.
Totally makes sense. So what steps do you take to integrate a new culture into your current workplace culture? So I know you recently acquired 2 Peruvian companies. You've not had a presence in Peru before. What steps are you taking to sort of learn and incorporate those issues?
So absolutely, every level of employee has been down to Peru. We have had multiple weeks and months of individuals there on the ground, boots on the ground, understanding what was going on, having them teach us, right? And the acquisition the ink is just dry, right? About a week. But even prior to the documents being signed, we were there and we were listening and understanding how they did the operations. And then on the flip side, we are actually thinking about, okay, how do we bring them over here to see how the end process is going to happen, how we're going to process that product through the Carteret facility, and what timing does that happen? When does that happen? To make sure that they can go back, have people understand, and even perhaps have people come here and learning. It is all about the integration, about the talking, the communicating. So, we've done it with other countries, Bulgaria to be specific, where we built our own facility. And the gentleman over on the L1, he's a specialist there, and he continues to go back. And we continue to invite them here to make sure that continuity really happens.
Oh, very interesting. So you have back and forth. So you're going over there, learning boots on the ground, and then you're inviting them to come here to see the remainder of what's happening, not just their little piece. So you get that integration.
That's right. And that's actually how, the determination was made to have that gentleman come over from Bulgaria and say, okay, here's this opportunity for you to help us at headquarters. You've got that, facility running amazingly. You have people you trust there. Do you come here and help us learn from here? And at this point, he's going into his second year, and he says, yeah, I love this. I love that I'm here. I can make impact. I can work with headquarters and still travel back and make them understand what we're looking at the business. And it has become a really good model. Additionally, when we have salespeople over in the EU and they come here and they spend a little bit length of time, they're like, oh, now I understand why it takes that long to do this process. So yeah, we're all about making sure that there's that integration, and it doesn't matter, yes, our headquarters is in New Jersey, but we are a global company and we have to worry about the vendors and the farmers, and every employee needs to feel that.
So with global mobility, certainly comes some other issues, right? You've got, and also dealing with companies of different time zones, but what are some of the common legal and compliance challenges that you face when you're managing global mobility? You mentioned the L1 visa, there's a hurdle, visas coming into the US, visas going to other countries.
Well, there will start, right? So
Yeah.
there's going to start visas for other countries. So we're going to have to, every time we go to a trade show, we've already hit that where, we have a large working relationship with Indonesia, and getting, making sure the visas are appropriate. We've had our CEO stopped at the airlines, right?
Dear.
So it is nuanced. So what you really need to do is make sure that you're working with partners, especially at Berje at headquarters, we're 200 employees. Globally, we're double that. But I'm not expected to understand that. You really make sure that you have the partners. So I pay globally. How do I do that? I outsource with a co-employment relationship where I don't necessarily need to know every single country's laws. I know the basics, and I should know the basics, and I should continue to teach myself as the head of HR, but I shouldn't have to know the nuances. And that's where you have to find trusted and respected partners to really help you navigate that.
So true. So true. And I know you like a challenge, so you're always learning something or other.
Well, I tease, right? If you stop learning, you stop living. You always have something to learn, and you always have something to give. There's, that is just a life philosophy, and it has worked very well for me, especially in HR. It changes every single day. And the first thing I do in the morning is look at what laws are changing. How does it impact the business? How does it just impact an employee in their life? So I think it's very important that continuous learning, every leader should think that is their biggest job.
Completely agree. So looking sort of to the future, where do you see the future of global mobility in the workplace? Are there any emerging trends you can identify now?
So I think it's going to get a little more difficult in the near term. I think that's why you need to build those relationships, because with new visas coming, new regulation, new governments.
Mm-hmm.
There will be challenges. And I think if you have a strong relationship with a partner who understands what you're trying to do, and I always say I'm brutally honest. With my partners, I like them to say, okay, Eleni, what's your end game? Right? What are you
Mm-hmm.
looking to accomplish here? You love to talk, you love to talk about this, but tell me what you're trying to accomplish so we can work through this together. And that is really, I think, a trend that people are going to have to understand, that, we're going to be global. We're going to have to deal with different nuances that are happening around the world, and we're going to need partners to help us navigate that. And that's okay. You're
Mm-hmm.
not supposed to be a specialist in every single country, and every single nuance. That's why you work with partners.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think that's terrific advice. I think a lot of times people in your position, are at the highest level of leadership. They feel like they should know everything. And that's not the case. As lawyers, we don't know everything. We have our little specialties that we maybe know most things, but then we know very little about other things. And you have to be able to know enough to get in trouble and enough to call your partners, right?
Absolutely. And that's what's so exciting, is you get to say, I know this part of it, but I don't know. And
Mhm.
people actually respect you for saying that. If you walk into a room and you say, oh, I completely got this, I completely know this from A to Z. Okay, maybe that's 10% of the time. If you're talking about HR in New Jersey for this type of company.
Right.
But, if you're looking broader, and you're looking, as HR, you have to look 5, 10, 15 years. If you think globally, if you have to think growth, and you should be, you must understand that you're never going to know everything. And that is okay. And in fact, you shouldn't know everything. You should use the people around you, you should use your partners, and you should learn from every level of employee and partner.
Absolutely. So, what advice would you give HR leaders looking to navigate the currently changing workplace, especially in this post-pandemic, becoming more and more global world?
Embrace change, um,
Mhm.
and have those difficult conversations. Change is, no matter whether it's good or bad, is scary for everybody. Um, Build your team, and I'm not just talking internally, right? As the world continues to evolve, you need a network to understand what other companies are doing, so that you can either replicate or not make the same mistake, right? Don't be afraid to learn from your network. Don't be afraid to partner with companies, that help you grow globally, that help you make these right decisions. That sometimes, you know, legal firms, sometimes they're just a gut check. It's like, okay, I'm
Mhm.
thinking of doing this, I know that. And a lawyer will say, you're right, don't do that. Or, you know what, you absolutely can do that. Let's figure out how we get it done correctly. Um, Networking, huge. It's, really talking about it and learning. So HR, don't be afraid of change. You need to be the change agent. You need to be brave, and you need to really support the companies and the employees that you're serving. And notice how I say that you are serving.
Mhm.
So you're leading them by serving them in their growth plan. As you get to, as you said, the highest level, your job now is to enable others to get to their highest level.
Such a terrific viewpoint you have, Eleni. Um, I love it. I love it. So, one question I have for you that I did not prepare you for, which
Okay.
is our question we always ask at the end of our podcast, is what keeps you up at night?
Oh, goodness. Disappointing the employees. And I truly believe that, you take care of the employees take care of your clients 90% of the time. Um, what keeps me up at night is, you know, not being able to tell the employee that I stood up for the values that we represent. Um, and it's not that I don't do it, it's I'm always concerned that I'm not doing enough. for that. So I guess what keeps me up at night is that I am concerned that I'm not doing enough to help our employees. I always feel like I have to do more.
Mhm.
And I actually feel that I'm honored to be able to feel that way because they empower me to be able to make that impact for the employees. So it's actually a double-edged sword in that I'm lucky that I'm able to have that feeling.
Eleni, every time I talk to you, you impress me. You are just so amazing. You are definitely the change agent in HR. You are amazing, and Berje is so lucky to have you. I know the employees must appreciate you.
I think they respect me.
I'm
But
taking
thank you.
your advice to heart about not having everyone like you, but always being honest and fair. I think that's great
Yes.
advice.
Yes. Thank you so much for having me, Elka. This has been amazing, and I love to be able to, share insights and learn so much. I learned so much from these podcasts and you and all of the partners out there that are willing to share and take the time to do this.
Oh, thank you for spending your time with us, Laney. I really appreciate it. I've learned a lot. I know I have a lot that I can learn from you. You are an amazing head of HR from my perspective, and I deal with a lot of them, so I have the ability to say that. But thank you for being
Thank
with us
you.
today. It was my absolute pleasure. Thank you, everyone, for listening to the Think Factory Workplace podcast. Until next time.